15 seconds and let people in.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. We've got a great crowd tonight here for our Gun Violence Prevention February monthly meeting. It is always so great to be here with all of you. We all need a place where we feel welcome, where we feel safe, where we know we've got each other's backs, and this is the place to be. So this is a great evening that we have planned for you. Thanks to Natalie Warren, we have a wonderful speaker, Jenny Levan, and I will let Natalie introduce her in just a little bit. I was thinking today, there's so much going on in the world right now that we could talk about. And I was thinking how all of you in this space represent something that I heard, obviously, is so important, that empathy and kindness. All of you do represent to me this feeling of empathy and kindness. So when I come in this space, I feel safe. And I feel the world is showing us so much cruelty and rage. And I was cleaning something today instead of actually reading some things I'm supposed to be reading for today, but cleaning out some stuff. And I ran across John Meacham. He's a historian, sometimes on MS Now. And he talked about that empathy is the oxygen for democracy. I thought, oh my gosh, this is so true, that if we never lose our sense of empathy, we can hold on to our democracy. And if we keep throwing empathy into the world and keep throwing kindness into the world, then we can make some inroads into what is going on right now. So those were just a couple of my thoughts. I also ran across some articles about how the dehumanization of people is really the fuel for violence. And we're certainly seeing that play out, and how language is playing such a part in what we're seeing. So I guess that calls us to a higher level of making sure we humanize everyone in this world to counteract what's going on. That being said, I was on a fabulous Zoom yesterday with the Interfaith Alliance, and I don't know how many folks of faith are on this call right now. I can't think of anything more important right now for anyone living in a faith lane of the world to come together across faiths to promote democracy versus the theocracy, which we're currently seeing try to come into fruition into this country of ours. So I'm glad I'm here with all of you. I hope you're glad to be here with us. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie, because I think people are coming. We've got some more people coming in.
Yes.
So thank you all for joining us. And Natalie, it's all yours now.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. You always do such a good job on the intro. I'm Natalie Warren, Kathy's partner in the Gun Violence Prevention Group for NWSOFA. And we are very pleased tonight to have a speaker who we've never had before. And her name is Jenny Levan. Am I saying that right now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. And she is a candidate for state rep for District 51 in Illinois. And she is a new key, someone who has not run for office before, as I understand. So we're very pleased that you're running, and very pleased to have you here. And when I was trying to think of who to invite next, we've had several candidates that, are running, who've run before, that we know that have joined our group. but I was looking for someone new, and I contacted some people for suggestions, and Jenny's name came up. And I'm so glad that it did, because I learned that once, we had set up the meeting so that you would be our speaker tonight, that you have a background in medical work. And besides the fact that, we're very interested in, your run for office in a more general way, it also, your background dovetails amazingly with gun violence prevention concerns, because Jenny is a registered nurse who has worked in almost every area of emergency medicine. So you have seen gun violence, the effects of gun violence, far more than probably anybody else, on this call. And just, a quick review. You are a registered nurse, of course. While you were in school, I understand that you worked as an EMT, an emergency medical technician, and also as a patient care tech. And then once you had your degree in nursing from Loyola, which is when you get a degree in nursing, it is a degree in, I want to say science. That's not, is it?
It's a Bachelor of Science in nursing. You don't have to get a Bachelor of
Bachelor of
Science to get a
Science.
registered nurse license,
Yes.
but I did.
But you did, yes.
Mhm.
And you have worked since you did get the degree at level 1 trauma centers, both at Loyola Medical Center and Advocate Condell Hospital up at Libertyville, and also as a critical care transport nurse. So you've had this, extraordinary amount of contact with people, who have been, injured and wounded and so on. And gun violence has played a role in a lot of cases, I would assume. So I had no idea that we had that connection, additional connection, but it should be lead to a very interesting talk tonight. So before I talk too much, I would like to say that one other thing that I learned from the information that Jenny gave me, and that is, as she put it, when she is elected, I like confidence, she will be the first ever, the first registered nurse ever elected to the Illinois, as a state rep in Illinois. And I think I find that mind-boggling, because there are so many nurses, and I know they're very busy people. Probably, I know you had to make shifts in your own work in order to run, but I think you bring something that would be very, very valuable to the legislature. So I will stop there and turn this over so that Jenny can talk to us about why you decided to run, what your major concerns and issues are, and also whatever links you feel comfortable making with gun violence. And it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak tonight. We were talking before everyone signed on, and if you have someone who works in emergency medicine, we're always excited to talk to you about our experiences. I have a theory you can't get a couple emergency responders in a room for more than 5 minutes without us starting to exchange war stories. We're very passionate about what we do, and we love to share about it. And on that, yes, actually, I'm lucky enough to be endorsed by the Illinois branch of the American Nurses Association. And it was actually, they were the ones who pointed out to me that I would be the first ever registered nurse elected into the General Assembly of Illinois, which we're still fact checking because I'm with you. I can't believe that that's in the year 2026. How is that possible? We've had medical representation. There's a few medical physicians. I believe there's a CNA right now, but nurses have a different point of view on things that I think really speaks to a lot of what we need to see more of in Springfield right now. And I'm lucky enough to be in a position to be able to run. So I'm hoping to bring those experiences and all of that to the table. I'm going to give a quick disclaimer. I don't intend to talk too much about war stories and everything, but I have had a very visceral experience with gun violence in my career. So if at any time you're feeling upset, I know everyone has different histories and experiences of their own. I just want to invite you to take the time to take care of yourself and, don't feel the need to sit through something that you're uncomfortable with. I will not be offended, I promise. I want everyone to take care of their own mental health needs. So I just wanted to start with that disclaimer. So my background, as Natalie mentioned, I actually got my first degree in hospitality management, not at all in nursing. I got my EMT license just to kind of see if I liked it, and I was in trouble because I fell in love with emergency medicine and realized I had to go back to school. I firmly believe that experience is one of the most valuable things that you can have in this life. So the entire time that I was in school, getting my prerequisites, working through nursing school, I was lucky enough to be in a position where I did not need to be working, but I chose to work because to me, that's the best education that you can get. So that's the entire crux of my career, is that the experiences that you have are so valuable. There's a reason that the 10, 20, 30-year veteran nurses have almost a sixth sense when it comes to what their patients need. And it's because you learn from those experiences. And I think real world experience like that is what's needed at the table when we're making decisions that are going to affect people in their day-to-day lives. So I come from a place where I was working in level 1 trauma centers and seeing some of the worst that humanity can encounter. But what was bothering me more than anything, more than the violence I was seeing, more than the injuries I was seeing, was the fact that I knew we were failing our patients and we were failing our medical staff. The system is not designed to benefit patients the way that it should be. Our nurses, our techs, our doctors, our paramedics, our first responders are all absolutely not taken care of the way that they should be. There's a lot of talk about how there's a nursing shortage right now, or there's a shortage of firefighters or first responders or law enforcement. There is no shortage of people who want to do the job. There's a shortage of people who are willing to continue to do the job. And that's just as, if not a bigger problem. So I found myself in a position where after every shift, I would call my mom and I would vent about my shift and get it off my chest. And I got so frustrated with just ending every shift in tears because I knew we could be doing better. And I'm very much someone who, if I can do something, I want to do something. While COVID was going on, I was on the front lines and I was in the emergency room in the N95 that I had to wear for far too many hours and walking into rooms where I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was the last person to hold someone's hand before they were intubated for the last time. And I still consider myself lucky because while I really appreciate everyone staying at home and sheltering in place to stop the spread of the disease, I was lucky enough to be able to feel like I could go fight back. And with everything going on right now in the world, to me, running for office is very akin to that. It's a way to fight back. So I also want to say thank you all for being here, being involved, participating. This is how we fight back when things are going on and things aren't going the way we need them to. So turning it over to gun violence, I actually was in a brainstorming session with my campaign committee, And the moderator was going through all of the healthcare things and, what's my background and what I can bring to the table. And gun violence came up, and she said, it's okay if you don't personally relate to everything. And I said, oh, my dear, you would be very shocked to find out how much gun violence has been a part of my life. I have lost count of the number of bullet holes that I have had to personally put my hand on to stop the bleeding, of the open chest wounds that I have had to tend to that have resulted from gun violence, of the hands I've had to hold, not only of family members who have been affected by gun violence, but the hand of the shooter that just pulled a trigger and made a mistake that they can never take back. And it's a tragedy on every end of the spectrum, and it needs to be addressed on every end of the spectrum. That has been, I've been the one to take care of it. I've been the one to know that it's going to keep coming around because gun violence is very cyclical. I've been on the danger side where my own safety was at risk because of gun violence and because of what was happening in my trauma bay or in my ambulance. And it's something that you don't really fully understand until you've experienced it. So again, that experience is what needs to be at the table when we're making these decisions. And from that experience, one thing I do want to point out is that gun violence it's multifaceted, it's complex. It's not as simple as the bad guys wear black hats and masks and have guns and the good guys have Superman capes. It's not as simple as that. It's very cyclical. I was lucky enough to sit in on a presentation by the Lake County Gun Violence Initiative, and their approach is to address the cyclical nature of gun violence. And I really think that they're working on something that we should expand on. When gun violence happens, we can continue to address it. Talk to the families who might want to continue to see something happen. Talk to the people affected. Look at the history that came from it. Because at the end of the day, guns offer a feeling of safety to those who feel powerless. So addressing that issue is also very important. I mean, this is intentional. I have genuinely tried to get a good, solid, accountable number of how much money the NRA has donated with the intention of preserving free and easy access to guns. And it's very hard to get a pinpointed number on because it's so complex in the way that they kind of hide how much money they're donating. But it sends that money of, if you feel helpless, have a gun, you'll feel protected. But the insight there is that offers us an avenue to address this problem. If we can find ways to combat that feeling of powerlessness and address it on the home front before it escalates to a situation of violence, we can stop some of these situations before they happen. So things like food, housing insecurity, mental health resources, social resources, all of these will have a direct impact on gun violence. We've seen it time and time again in the areas that see the most exposure to gun violence. So understanding that whole picture and how complicated all of this is a key point in addressing the direct impact of gun violence. And I think another really important part of this is restoring that faith in leadership. I do believe in the Second Amendment. I absolutely understand its purpose and why it's there, and I believe in our Constitution. It is flawed, but it is a evolving and living document that we should continue to address. But I don't believe that the Second Amendment means that there should be no restrictions, there should be no checks, and there should be no safety. When you commit gun violence, you lose the ability to have that right. Your rights are taken away, whether it's your right to own a gun, depending on the nature of the crime you commit. You may lose your right to vote. You may lose your right to freedom if you're incarcerated. There's consequences to those. So applying that same logic to prevention of gun violence and ensuring that not everyone has access to a gun if it's not safe, not having access to, assault rifles or rifles that were designed with the intent to kill in numbers that are beyond comprehension. There's ways to talk about this, and there's ways to protect people's rights without infringing on the rights of others. And the last thing I want to say is in terms of my run for office, again, I keep coming back to the fact that, experience, I think, is the greatest teacher. We have no shortage of people with law degrees and who have practiced law in our state legislature. And I think that's really, really important. I'm not a legal expert. I'm one class away from a master's in legal studies because, again, I think education and knowing what you're getting yourself into is important. However, I will never pretend to be a legal expert to the caliber of those who have practiced law. But in that same nature, I would ask people would respect that the level of expertise that I bring to the table is really important in this time. So that's why I'm running for office. That's what I intend to bring to Springfield. And I'm perusing through my notes to see if I forgot to highlight anything, but I don't want to spend the whole night talking. I'd rather get to questions and talk with you guys about, your perspectives and what are some things that you would like to see elevated. So again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so inspired by the number of people I see showing up and tuning in and staying involved. Because again, that's where change happens, is when people show up. So thank you all so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much, for sharing everything that you have shared. We are very appreciative, of you're sharing your experiences, and I feel, really giving us very honest views of where you stand and what you believe in. And I think it's great that people have an opportunity now to ask questions. And we'll start out by having people put their questions in the chat.
I have 3 for you, Natalie, or not for you, for Jenny.
Right. Yes. Right. She'll do a much better job than I would on this.
Okay, would you like me to ask the first question?
Sure.
Okay, this is from Susan. Her question is, should guns be approved on college campuses?
I think there's places where people need to feel safe and not worry about it. I can understand the value of, a concealed carry license in the sense that it's a license that requires education and training and restriction and adhering to the restrictions that are set forth if you have a license to carry. However, I do see value in walking into a space and knowing that you're safe. I can understand the exception for a first responder, a law enforcement officer who would need to protect themselves and, again, meets the standard of training in order to do so. However, there's also opportunity there to invest in other options, in less lethal options for protection. So I guess in short, I'm still not a good politician. I'm sorry. I'm going to directly answer questions. I don't think that in my experiences, I've seen a strong case for why guns should automatically be allowed on college campuses. I think there should be areas of protection. So schools would absolutely qualify in my opinion and in my experience. Apologies, my dog started barking. He saw someone across the street. So if he gets loud, he gets annoyed when I'm on the computer too long.
That's okay. Joyce's question is, I would like to see a public service campaign promoting safe gun storage. Do you think that's something the legislature could do?
Absolutely. I think sensible gun laws extend far before and beyond when a trigger is ever pulled. When you have a gun in the house, your chance of an accidental injury or death exponentially increases, especially if there's a child in the house. And there's no militia there's no malicious intent in that. There's no, not even a, situation where this could have been prevented by mental health or by reckless action. I mean, when we have a child in a house, we put glasses on a shelf that they can't reach. Accidents happen. And that's true whether the more dangerous the situation, the more caution that there needs to be.
Yeah.
Something like we have restrictions on cars and ways to keep our cars safe. When we notice that there is a situation where we're seeing increased injury or increased life risk because of the vehicles that we drive, legislation responds to that to make the roads safer for everyone. I see no difference between that and a gun. If that's something that people want to have a right to have, let's make it safe for them to do so. Let's find a way to install safer practices in terms of storing our guns, in terms of restricting access to our guns, especially for little ones or people who really don't have business having easy access to a gun.
Okay, and Joyce has another question for you.
Okay.
It is, what gun violence prevention and gun restrictions do you support? And do you support an assault weapons ban?
I absolutely support an assault weapons ban. I grew up around guns. All of my uncles, my dad, my brother, my cousins have all hunted. I was raised with a respect for guns and a respect for the dangers of guns. And just something as simple as a shotgun or a single round weapon is dangerous enough. When we're approaching the situation where guns can, penetrate cars or police armor or fire multiple rounds in moments, there's no need for anything. The only intention for a weapon of that caliber is to kill somebody. So in that type of situation, we've moved beyond a situation where you're claiming that you want to protect yourself or you want to use it for recreational hunting or target shooting. When something is created with that intent, where it is successful when it takes a life or when it causes irreparable damage to somebody, there's no need for that in a residential recreational situation. I would absolutely support banning that caliber of weapon. I've been learning more and participating in promoting the Rifle Act. I know this is being pushed forward, and I am unbelievably in support of that. I talked a little bit about, the NRA has donated so much money to trying to keep access to guns available because it's profitable. It's profitable to sell guns and to sell merchandise for guns and to sell, everything around it. It's a business. And what better way in a capitalistic society than to hold those creating this source accountable, hold them accountable financially. If they're going to benefit off of putting people at risk, hold them accountable for putting people at risk. I think this is a phenomenal solution to a big portion of this problem. So would absolutely support seeing that through.
Okay. Oh, Joyce is on a roll. She's got another question.
Joyce is good people.
All right,
Joyce is so well informed. Joyce is one of my favorite people to talk to.
All right. Her other question is, do you support the ability to sue gun manufacturers?
Yes. Yes, you are responsible for the product you create. Again, cars are brought up all the time. If a car is designed in a way that causes harm to people, we hold the manufacturer accountable. When a toy is released that, even if it's used with the way that it's intended, it causes harm to somebody, the manufacturer is held accountable. I see absolutely no difference based on past precedent why gun manufacturers should not be held to the same accountability level.
All right. John has a question for you. Are there trends in ER cases of gunshot wounds?
Trends in what capacity? So, venturing into there's an entire psychosocial aspect to gun violence. The warmer times tend to be the more violent times. So like once we start getting into April and May, that first really, really warm day that we have in the spring tends to be one of the most violent days. And this is completely anecdotal. I don't have studies to back this up. I would just base this off of my experience. But when the weather is warm and people, are getting out and shaking off the cabin fever, I would argue that I've probably seen a little bit higher increase of gun activity at that time. I would also absolutely stress that gun violence is cyclical. When I was working in an area that was a little bit more familiar with gun violence, as soon as the shift started, I worked a night shift for 4 years at this hospital. As soon as we had the first victim come in, we knew we were going to get at least a few more because they were going to go and retaliate, and it was just going to continue, and the trend just continues to build. And it's heartbreaking, and it's just this awful sense of waste. I've worked in medicine and in critical care medicine for most of my career. I'm no stranger to being around people that are dying. And honestly, when someone reaches the end of their life and they have the opportunity to experience a full life and live, well, and they approach a death at the end of a long life, it's a beautiful thing. It's a part of life, and I'm honored to have been able to be a part of that. But when a life is cut short or completely changed from just a moment decision that will forever impact them, those are harder to deal with. Those are the ones that keep me up at night. And in terms of trends, I think the youngest victim of gun violence I saw was he 3 or 4? I want to say maybe he was 3 years old, and he was an accidental shot from someone who was intended to go for somebody else. It was an intentional shot, but not intended for the 3-year-old. And then I think late 80s was one of the later ones that I saw, was someone who was not self-inflicted, nothing like that. It was a direct cause of someone else's action. I've seen every end of life be affected by it, from the very young to those who have lived more years. I've seen every socioeconomic group. I've seen every race. I've seen every religion. There's certainly more areas that have higher trends due to accessibility and due to the socioeconomic factors that tend to impact them. But to me, that just means that we need to offer more. We need to be better serving, and we need to address those. And again, instill that feeling of safety and faith in our community and in our leaders and in our resources, so that people don't feel compelled to rely on gun violence for their protection.
Ooh, see, they agree with you back there.
That's why I'm so sorry. He gets excited.
That's quite
The
all right.
squirrels have decided to start taunting him, so he gets upset.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Joyce has another question for you. Do you support the Safety Act?
Do I support the Safety Act? I'm so sorry. I'm absolutely blanking on a moment. I do know the Safety Act, but I'm distracted by my dog. Can you refresh my mind just a moment? I don't want to
Sure.
speak
I just
on
asked Joyce to unmute.
So basically, this is the law that keeps people, basically people without money from
the
sitting in
bond
jail.
to keep
Right.
the bail. Yes.
Right,
So,
yeah.
okay. Again, I just want to make sure I understood the question. I apologize.
No
I don't
problem.
want to not answer truthfully. Yes, I do support that. I think in many, many ways, bail is financially punishing those who can't pay it and rewarding those who can. The same consequences don't apply to everybody. Those who commit violent acts, you should be kept away, you should be kept safe, you should be given the resources that you need in order to help reacclimate you and make you more appropriate when your time is served and when it's appropriate for you to reacclimate into society. Those who have committed minor infractions, nonviolent infractions, infractions where you pose no threat to your community, to punish you because you can't pay the fee to get out of it, there's no benefit in that other than punishing those who don't have the money for it. So, and I appreciate the clarity. Again, I just do not want to answer a question untruthfully. So thank you very much.
Okay. Linda has a question I would think here for you. She says, I'm a substitute teacher in a high school. Do you have any ideas on what the administration can do to help protect the schools besides the teachers carrying guns, like clear plastic backpacks?
I think there are so many ways that we can be supporting our schools before we start trying to arm our teachers. My mom's a teacher, and she always gives me a hard time because she said, oh, education's so hard. You have to help people, and people take advantage of your compassion for long hours of work. And I'm glad you never got into that. I was like, Mom, I'm a nurse, right? Very similar pathways here. But yes, teachers, like nursing, that's another career. Nobody signs up to be a teacher because they don't want to do good for the world and instill, hope and inspiration in the next generation. And to say that our solution to violence in the schools is to make teachers carry guns where they might potentially be putting their students at further risk, that makes no sense to me. I don't understand where this logic comes from. like I said, college campuses, schools should be a place of safety, and a dependence on guns, in my experience, is a countermeasure to feeling unsafe. If we can instill that feeling of safety and trust, I think that will be infinitely more beneficial than giving teachers weapons and increasing the access students have to these weapons. In terms of, bad faith actors coming into our schools, in terms of, outside sources coming in and threatening schools, which does happen, I'm not going to deny that. I can tell you exactly where I was when I saw the news about Sandy Hook. Invest in our schools. Give our schools the resources they need to protect people so that they have enough staff to make sure that the doors are locked and watched appropriately. If it's a situation where there's a history of violence or a need for clear backpacks, fine, maybe that needs to be something we look into. If the research and if the experience and the situation proves that that will be beneficial in making people feel more safe, absolutely, let's do that. There are a million avenues we can explore before we start arming our teachers and forcing them to walk into school like they're walking into a battlefield.
So true. Kathy has a question now. What do you think the impact is on the likelihood of an increase in gun violence when we take on a us versus them mentality? And what role do you think that misogyny plays in terms of the gun violence we see, including the gun violence perpetrated by those undertrained individuals working as federal agents for the DHS and CBP?
I'm gathering that this question is in reference to the ICE agents, and I appreciate so much the danger that you are in when you stand up to these agents. What struck me over, Renee Good was murdered. I have no problem saying Renee Good was murdered. I know legally you're supposed to say allegedly until these things happen, but we've seen the video. The person who murdered, I still believe in the Constitution. The person who pulled the trigger deserves a fair trial, but that trial needs to happen. What even more impressed me about so soon after that, the execution of Alex Preddy, again, those who pulled the trigger deserve their day in court. I believe in our Constitution. What astounded me even more about that is that he saw the gun violence and he still showed up to go protect somebody else, along with everyone else who has been out there in the streets continuing to protest. I don't take that lightly, and I fully respect that. I think I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I think there is, when your dependence is on weaponry and when your dependence is on something like a gun to make yourself feel safer, to make yourself feel powerful, I think that's why you turn to that. I think it is such a strong statement and such a beautiful statement. How many of these protests against ICE and how many of these situations where we've been standing up for our neighbors and where people have been showing up in droves peacefully to try to just offer protection, solidarity, stand with their neighbors. I think that sends such a strong message to the fact that it does have an effect. And it kills me to admit how much of a risk it is when you have people standing out there in front of guns. But if anything, it goes to show to the point that the whole there should have been a good guy with a gun is completely invalid. It doesn't matter. So I really strive not to do an us versus them, because I don't think anyone is inherently evil. There is no cartoon bad guy that just wants to create chaos. If you can understand where someone is coming from, I think that helps you reach them a little bit better. As much as the chaos that's going on right now in the federal government especially, but this kind of cultural movement that backs it, as much as it's shown us, a lot of flaws in our system, I think one thing it really did highlight that we need to pay attention to is that there is an entire group of our population that felt underheard and underrepresented, that felt like they weren't listening to. And as much as I feel like it was done with malicious intent, they were given an avenue where they felt they were listened to, and that's powerful, and they've rallied behind that. And I think we need to take a lesson from that in the sense that we need to give people a voice and make sure that they know that they're being heard, and reach out to those that feel like they're underrepresented and make sure that they feel that their voices are heard. Help them feel elevated, help them feel seen. So in terms of an us versus them, I think it's easier to see it that way. And I think it feels safer because, you know, I could never be that person and I don't want to associate myself with something like that. But the reality is we're all on the same team. We're all trying for many of the same end goals. Our approach to it is just differently. So in the moment, it's satisfying to take that us versus them, and we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. But I think what's going to get us through this to the other side is recognizing that there was some need there that wasn't being filled that we need to address, just like every other problem that we have in this country. And if we can take that approach to it and find a way forward together rather than pinning our own neighbors against each other, I think that's going to have a much more lasting impact and a much more lasting solution to a lot of the problems that we're seeing in our community and in our society today.
So Jenny, I agree 100% of what you're saying. I had read that the us versus them mentality is the basis of most authoritarian governments. And so what I meant, and I didn't say it clearly in there, is that we are being put into a position in America where though the Epstein regime is trying to get us to divide ourselves into an us versus them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're telling us too here, though, it's so important that we can't afford to join in to that thinking, into thinking that we, all of us on this gun violence prevention meeting tonight, we are the chosen people in terms of our empathy and our kindness and our wonderfulness, and those other people are not. And I actually had read some information that said that when you divide people, us versus them, that does help sell guns. It actually does increase gun violence. So you got the right approach in saying, you know, we've got to listen to people. You know, I think people were tricked and they thought they were being listened to. Now they know that they're not being listened to. So I wonder what is actually happening to their whole mental health state of being now that they realize, oh my gosh, we were lied to.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how desperation sets into people, and will that lead to more gun violence?
I worry that it will. I think the best way forward is for us to recognize what was used against us and what was and by us I mean the American people. I don't mean us on this call. I mean what was used against us, the American people. There are people I love who refuse to sign my petition because of the party that I'm running with. There are people that I have been friends with who, when they found out I was running as a Democratic candidate, have kept their children away from me. And I don't take that personally. It's hard not to sometimes, but I fully recognize that I am where I am because of, you know, the sum of my experiences and the people in my life and the opportunities that I've had and the challenges that I faced. And if I can take credit for where I am, I have to give credit for where other people are. And the other thing that I can say, there's not a lot of absolutes in this life. There are a few, but there are very few absolutes in this life. But absolutes are simple. They're easy. I'm the good guy, he's the bad guy is absolute and clean, and I can wrap my head around that. But reality is much more complicated, and complicated is harder. When you know, again, I'm not saying we shouldn't hold people accountable. I believe the people who were shot illegally, unconstitutionally, from what I have seen, again, they deserve their day in court. Those who committed those acts deserve their day in court. They deserve a lawyer. They deserve every opportunity to prove that they were innocent of what they're being accused of. I firmly believe in the Constitution, and I believe in that process. But the process needs to happen. That is also part of the Constitution, is that accountability happens. Everything that's been happening with the federal government, hiding and covering up what evidence that we've seen that they are inciting confusion and frustration and public violence, and, you know, everything that they've been doing with the intent to distract from this, doesn't take away from the fact that those people need to be held accountable. Investigations need to happen, the court processes need to happen. It should be a slow process because, you know, a government dictating that somebody's rights should be removed, whether that be incarceration, losing their right to vote, losing, you know, as a result of incarceration or a guilty verdict, that shouldn't be easy to do. But it is something that should happen. And I think the biggest test for our country, we're going to get past this. Donald Trump is not going to be here forever. I don't see that coalition having a group to rally behind as strongly as the mascot that he's created for them to rally behind. We're going to get past this. I think what's going to be our biggest test as a nation is going to be what happens in the 5, 10, 20 years after the Donald Trump era, where we decide, are we going to continue this us versus them, or are we going to find a way to welcome each other back into each other's lives? And that's going to be on us to recognize the situation that we came in. It's going to be on those who don't support Trump to offer understanding and forgiveness to the other side. It's going to be a burden on the other side of the political aisle as well to recognize that, you know, there were flaws in their logic. They were played by a con man, and there's acceptance in that. And it's not easy for either side. But perpetuating this us versus them, good guys versus bad guys, it's just going to dig the wound in deeper, and it's just going to prolong the problems that we're having right now.
Thank you. And any thoughts about misogyny? You know, dehumanization, hatred of women playing into the mindset of the federal agents, because so many of the reports that we're reading about women being shot, there was one in Chicago, is, you know, the language that is being used against the women before they're shot.
My study is not in clinical psychology. I have a lot of exposure to psychological problems, particularly psychological crises and emergencies. So this is not me speaking as any kind of medical mental health expert beyond crisis, you know, management. That being said, I am a single woman. I am 35. I own my own house, and I work in a field that is predominantly men. So I also am an avid sports fan, and I have firsthand knowledge of when you start comparing basketball stats of college basketball with other men, they get a little bit threatened and they don't always appreciate it. It kind of goes back to that feeling of safety. Culturally, there's an expectation that men are stronger than women, that men have more power over women. We can get into an entire, you know, study on all of that and talk about that. But when people feel threatened, often your first instinct is to put someone down to make yourself feel better. We see this in developing children when they're, you know, finding their own feet and learning who they are in the world. When they feel under threat or when they feel unsafe in their environment, if I can make myself feel better than the person next to me, maybe I'll feel safe. It's just an ingrained feeling that we have. I think, again, it kind of comes to that, you know, not falling into the us versus them. I think the best thing we can do is recognize that there's a problem. You know, there's a whole wave on the internet right now that I don't think is very helpful of the whole, you know, men are the problem, women are safe, everyone needs to, you know, let women rule the world, and it's catchy and it looks good on a t-shirt. But the reality is that we've seen a pattern of it being men vilifying men and making them feel like they don't have a place at the table. It is not helpful. I see men in the camera on here that are sitting and listening and asking questions, and I appreciate it so much. I love that you have a space here along with everybody else. I think that's important. I think recognizing that tendency that women make easy targets. You know, there's biologically, physically, women are easy targets for men who tend to be larger, stronger, higher muscle build. That's just the reality of the situation sometimes. It's no different than somebody who has a gun has a physical advantage over somebody who doesn't. So recognizing those patterns, acknowledging them, learning from them, lifting others up to overcome them, I think that's how we get there. In the same way that we need to listen to people with different experiences across religious, racial, age, gender, socioeconomic, anyone who has an experience different than us, we need to listen to their stories and elevate their voices so that their experiences can be heard. Men need to be listening to women, women need to be listening to men. men need to recognize that there has been an advantage for men in our society for generations, and that has had repercussions that are still present to this day. There's a reason that with, this ability to check voter registration that they're trying to pass right now, that they're touting as a way to protect citizens' privilege to vote. My skin crawled when I heard that during the State of the Union address. I'm sorry, that made me nuts. Voting's not a privilege, it's a right. But the fact that this is being pushed with the intent of preserving our right to vote, the reality is that women are going to have the hardest time obtaining that privilege. It's a right, it's not a privilege. Women are going to have the hardest time. They're going to have the hardest loopholes to jump through. And that's just a fact of the way that the system was created. So listening to people, really listening, not just giving them a talking platform to speak on, listening to what they're saying, trying to understand their point of view, all of that is really going to be important moving forward. And recognizing when you're out in the street and you see a woman standing up to a man in body armor with an assault rifle in front of him, recognizing that she's in a vulnerable spot or he's in a vulnerable spot, the best way we can support each other is to stand next to each other. And take out your phones and film it. Because if all of those situations hadn't been on film, we wouldn't know about it.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I have another question for you. This one is from Kathy. Attorney General under Biden had declared gun violence a public health crisis, meaning as it has done with tobacco-related disease and motor vehicle accidents. Can that ever happen where firm laws, community and mental health, well-funded, and change in mentality about gun violence?
Can it change to where we recognize it as a health crisis?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Anything that threatens our lives, that's our health. Your health is your ability to get through life to the best quality of life that you have access to. It's going to look different for many different people. And that's the beauty of the world that we live in, is that we've been given the miracle of modern medicine that has allowed us to explore this world in a way that centuries before have never had the opportunity. And any threat to that life is a threat to the health of our community. I am very educated in medicine. I have more certifications and credentials and licenses at the end of my name. If I actually list them all out, there's more letters in my credentials than in my actual name. It makes for really awkward business cards. And I can tell you that probably one of the things that I have studied more than anything in my entire career is the impact of traumatic events and traumatic injuries on the body and on the family dynamic and the social dynamic of a person's life. Whether it's car accidents, gun violence, any other kind of violence, it's something that immediately interrupts your body's normal functioning system, that completely disrupts it, that requires your body to adjust to it, or will terminate your body's ability to do so. I don't see any difference between a bullet and a cancer or any other threat to your body's ability to maintain homeostasis and keep you alive and well.
Okay, at this point, that was the last question at this point. So Natalie or Kathy Reisberg, do you have anything further?
Well, I think we've had just an amazing, variety of questions, and extremely well handled with all kinds of things coming from all different areas. So I'm very pleased that we had such a great response for the questions. And if anybody thinks of one more, we could probably fit it in.
Oh, I have one more, Natalie, of course. I always
you
have
go.
one more. Jenny, I just read that during the training for the agents that are now on the street, that training for ICE members was cut down from 74 days to 42 days, but they cut out 16 hours of firearm training for the members of ICE.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what the impact of that do you think is on the quick trigger fingers that we're seeing? I have statistics also on how many times the guns have been brandished,
Which
to intimidate.
Yeah, I'm not trained in legal, excuse me, I'm not trained in law enforcement, but I've worked beside law enforcement pretty much my entire career. I consider them my brothers and sisters on the front line, and I have relied on them many, many times. And one of the things that frustrates me to my core about what is happening with these ICE agents is that they are sullying the name of those who have dedicated their lives to protecting others.
Right.
To put on a uniform, especially at a time when there is such distrust of law enforcement, and to still put a uniform on and declare yourself to be a public servant who has trained and done the work to carry a gun and to take other people's safety under your responsibility, for someone to put on a costume and play good guys, cops and robbers, bad guys, is an insult. And it bothers me, and it really upsets me for the safety that they are putting into question for those who continue to do so honorably. One thing in talking to my friends in law enforcement with all of these videos that you see, I distinctly remember watching with one of my law enforcement colleagues when ICE agents were trying to apprehend somebody, and it was taking 6 ICE agents to hold him down and get him in handcuffs. And we're just sitting there going, this officer would have peacefully had him in restraints in 10 seconds without having to throw him to the ground, without having to put anyone in danger. And to watch them struggle through it goes to show the lack of training, the lack of education, the lack of compassion, the lack of respect they have for the authority that they are wielding. And it's only going to continue. The less training, the more you just give freedom, unchecked freedom, to these officers. I'm sorry, they're not, I don't hold them to the standard that I hold my brothers and sisters in law enforcement. I haven't seen that level of respect be earned from them. To know that their training is being continually diminished and that they're just being given more and more, permission to go out into the community and assert that perceived dominance very, very much upsets me, because I do know it is going to result in more violence. And I think that is one of the first things we need to address. With the defund the police movement that we had a while ago, I think that was a horribly marketed campaign, because I agree, officers don't need, assault rifles, tanks to the level that we're seeing some of these police departments. But what we do need investment in is training and, response training, after the fact, debriefing training, de-escalation training, more mental health awareness. All of those things require funding and time and experts and research. That's where we need to be putting much more funding. And to just blatantly take that away from people that you're giving a free pass to go into communities with assault rifles in their hands, it's just a recipe for more danger. And it absolutely, I saw someone put accountability will make it even worse. Absolutely. Accountability is, taking away that accountability is dangerous. And I hope we can see more legislative efforts to provide that accountability and to hold these people accountable for what they have done and for what they've been given permission to do. All sides of it need to see accountability.
Thank you, Jenny. Once we get the Epstein files out, maybe things will change. But right now, I think the idea is that this fear, this intimidation, that is their purpose, and they're undertrained to fulfill that purpose, knowing that, I haven't seen the statistics, how many of these individuals, I haven't seen women on the front lines as ICE agents, but
not as many, but there are
right?
there.
There are
how
many of these people were, part of January 6th, but
yep, it's a class of people that have felt helpless, and this puts them in a position where they feel power. And
right. So I don't know how we can win their hearts and their minds, but like you said, we have to be able to get to people and find what we have in common. You see what people have in common, Jenny, when you're in an emergency room and they're coming in and they've been shot, or they're coming in with a medical emergency. You're not looking at them as Democrats or Republicans. They're just human beings fighting for their life.
And let me tell you, I've seen people talk a real big game when they're, in the emergency room and when they're under threatened or whatever. I've seen those exact same people cry for their mom and cry because someone's holding their hand. I can literally say I have been in situations where you see people of every race involved in the same situation, and when that blood is soaking my uniform, I don't know whose it is. At our core, we are all the same, and we have to remember that
the blood is the same color, no matter the color of our skin. So I think we'll get there eventually. I think people are going to be, unfortunately, more shocked and more disillusioned as the days go by. But at least we know that in this space that, there are bright lights of hope, just like you're bringing to us, Jenny, today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for being here. Please take care of yourselves. I know this is frustrating. I know it's hard to doom scroll and see the news, but let me look around. There's so many people on this call. I can't tell if there are people on the live. You're not alone. There are people who are in this with you. If you need to take a step away and take care of yourself, please do so. If you would like to continue talking and you would like to reach out, my email is on my website. Joyce, God bless you. She's put it in the chat a couple times. It's my name, jennylevan.com. The email is on there. I check that myself. That doesn't get delegated to somebody else on my team because it's really important for people to know that I'm representing you so you have access to me. So if you have questions or if there's anything that I can be doing to help escalate something that you were really passionate about, please reach out. I mean that genuinely. I really do want to hear from everybody.
Well, just to let you know, Jenny, Shayla put in the chat that she's in New York City and she wishes she could vote for you.
I appreciate that. Find your representative and find someone in your area you can vote for that you believe in, because that state and local legislation, that is what's keeping our country floating right now.
I wanted to ask quickly, not a question exactly, but do you have any events? Do you have any events?
Sorry.
You've done a marvelous job with the questions. I don't want to, I don't want to pile on more, but I saw that you had, I think it was you, a postcard writing event.
Yes.
Maybe? And if you had any events that you wanted to just spread the word about.
Absolutely. We are doing a postcard writing event. If you're in the area, we're going to be at the Hacienda Mexican restaurant in Killdeer this Saturday from 12 to 3. We have a whole bunch of postcards that we are just going to send out. I don't have an opponent in the primary, but we really do want to get people to come out and show our strength in numbers for the primary. If you have not voted yet, please make your plan to do so, because that statement of the Democrats are showing up and we have voices and we want them heard is very important. But this Saturday, 12 to 3, if you're able to come, we would love to see you. If you're in the area, not the following Saturday, yes, the following Saturday, March 7th, we're going to do a canvassing event. We're going to meet at the Ela Township Library at noon. We'll give you a list of doors to knock. We're still kind of targeting people who are a little bit more favorable to the Democratic agenda. So if you've never knocked on doors before, it's a really great, easy way to get started. I actually really found I love knocking on doors. It's really great when you find somebody that you relate to and you can talk to them and learn who your neighbors are and who are getting involved. And then one last plug, on March 21st, the Illinois chapter of the American Nurses Association is doing like coffee meet and greet fundraiser, kind of like this. It's going to be, I believe, on Zoom, where, answer questions, get to know me, get to know you guys a little bit better. I will put that information on, it should be on my website in the next couple days. We're still waiting on some their logo issues. We want to make sure that we're not using it without permission. In the next couple days, that all information will be on my website. And it's open to anybody, not just nurses. So if you're interested in joining, please do.
And Jenny, is all the information and the dates that you have just mentioned on your site?
It should be on my site. And if it's not, dear God, let me know so I can reach out and talk to my person to make sure we get that updated as soon as possible.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us and giving us so much of your time and energy and answering so many questions. we know that you're going to win the primary. That's a good thing. Uh, and maybe you can come back and talk to us again before the election in November.
Absolutely.
If if the schedules work out and so on, we would love to have you back.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful, restful evening. Recover. Every day seems like a new battle, so let's do it.
Can't argue there.
Right. So I had a couple things just sort of to announce and all, but I can go through this quickly. But
I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to log off. I have
yes,
something else I got to run
Feel
to.
free to do that. Yeah, I'm sure you have an
Thank you, Jenny. That
Thank
was
you all so
fabulous.
much. I
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much.
you.
We'll be
Thank you,
voting
Jenny.
for you for sure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, I had a couple things to announce here that I agreed to announce. Well, I sort of committed to make announcements. One of them has to do with the Rifle Act that Jenny mentioned and we have talked about. We've had presentations on it. And they are, they are pushing it closer to bringing up for a vote, although probably that won't happen until after the election. But they are having a day of advocacy down in Springfield. And for people who have never done that, it involves getting yourself to Springfield, and the date is April 30th. And there will be buses going from Chicago, also East St. Louis. I don't know if there's anyone here, from Chicago or East St. Louis, but those would be the two places where there are buses that I believe you can ride for free down to Springfield early that morning. And they just give you lists of legislators to go and talk to and tell them why you believe strongly in the Rifle Act, and certainly give you talking points. And they want to make a huge impression on the legislators there. This legislation that was introduced last year proposes requiring firearm manufacturers to obtain state licenses and pay fees on their products' involvement in injuries. It would allow for funding of victim assistance and incentivize safety for gun manufacturers. They believe that if we pass this bill, it could save Illinois $500 million a year.
Wow.
In the costs that we spend dealing with all of the, with people with injuries and disrupted families, police, legal costs, if we could cut down on the violence. And the law has gotten traction in other states. I know I've heard Hawaii, Minnesota, and New York are all interested in pursuing their own versions of it. And I also heard that, although it would never pass at the moment, that there are people who are planning to bring up a version of it nationally, in Washington, D.C., in Congress. So, and we were the first ones to do it. And we had Dr. Anthony Douglas speak to us almost a year ago now in one of our many great meetings in the past year. And it is gaining so much traction. So, whether you can go to Springfield or not, it would be a wonderful thing. But just being, willing to support the bill when they do eventually, get it into committees and so on, we'll have the opportunity to do witness slips. So I definitely wanted to mention that as an opportunity for people who might, have the time and the wherewithal to, get themselves organized and get to Springfield one way or another. And it is something that's open not just to relevant just to people, in the Chicago area, but it affects the entire state. So, people who are on this call from all different places in Illinois could get involved in that. And that was the one thing that I definitely wanted to bring up tonight. Are there any other thoughts or things that we should cover tonight?
Chaya has her hand up. Would you like to take her question? Or
Certainly.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Chaya.
Okay, well, I put this in the chat. The Winnetka Northfield Kenilworth League of Women Voters, in fact, actually on Friday, the 30th, is having a lunch lecture. It's in the chat, and you can go to our website. It's real easy. Just copy down our website, lwv .wnk. I'm sorry, lwv-wnk.org. And you can register for this lunch and lecture on Friday, the 30th. If you're not going down to Springfield, Arnie Duncan is going to be there with participants in CRED.
Wow.
And I had written down what CRED stands for, CRED, but that is the big gun violence prevention organization in Chicago. People are signing up already right and left for the program. It's going to be at the North Shore Senior Center in Northfield. So go to our website. We're also going to have one of the leaders from the Moms Demand Action who will be speaking about the Rifle Act. We don't have a date for that yet. That's probably going to be at the Winnetka Public Library. Keep looking at our website because it'll be posted. And also for sure, we are having on Tuesday, May 12th, Dr. David Olson, who is the co-director of the Loyola University Center for Criminal Justice. He will be speaking about the Safety Act. He's an expert on it. He'll be going over all kinds of questions. It'll be at the Winnetka Public Library. So go to our website at lwv-wnk.org. Finally, when this does come up for witness slipping, the Rifle Act, do fill out a witness slip, because every legislator I've talked to says witness slips do make a difference. Even though people say they don't, they do. And it's such an easy thing to do. Probably everybody here knows that. So please do that. We have, like, in the Senate or the House, I'm getting them mixed up. I wrote this down for a meeting the other night. We have 25 sponsors, either in the Senate or co-sponsors or the House of the Rifle Act, and the other way around, 40 co-sponsors. Legislators kept signing up for this. So this really should pass before the session is over May 31st. So do fill out a witness slip and do come to our thing. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Thank you. All right.
All right. So, Kathy.
I was thinking we could end our meeting at 8:15 if no one else has anything else that they want to say. Maybe we can stay and chat, or people can just
No, I think
relax.
if people have finished with announcements and questions, I think it would be good to finish up for the evening and save our energy to fight again tomorrow.
I think that's a good idea. We should all get to bed earlier, not watch as much news as I watch before bed, and just do something fun. Bill, do you have anything you want to say? Bill's got his hands
Bill,
up.
yes, Bill always
Oh,
has something to
look
say.
at there. Oh,
Bill.
hello, Bill.
There we go. Yeah, I had
Okay.
unmute. I did. It's just fun to see these candidates who are so articulate and they have such great backgrounds that they will bring to the legislative bodies.
Yes.
And this was excellent, just excellent. NWSOFA has a new interesting program. It's going to be on Saturday at 2 p.m. That's Central Time. And it is going to be a continuing program of engaging youth voices. So we're going to have a youth panel of young university students and high school students who have been appearing on our coffee and conversation and on our happy hours to express their views, which are views we need to know, absolutely need to know, and they need to understand our views. So this is going to be a panel. It's going to be at 2:00 this Saturday. This is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, 2 days from now at 2 p.m. The same link that you used to come in here, the standard NWSOFA link. One of our national members, Marilyn from Las Vegas, suggested that we do that. And we told her that at NWSA, if somebody suggests something, we ask them to run it. So Marilyn is running it, and she's got the this Saturday, and then she's got March 14th with another group of students, and they are calling her up now that they hear that we're looking to hear from them. So this is wonderful. I hope we can sustain this right through the midterms. All
And
right, so
Bill?
that's what I wanted to share.
This is 2 p.m.
Great.
Central Time.
Oh, did I not say that? I'm sorry.
Well, you said 2 p.m., but just in case anybody wants to, go
Keeping
on.
me honest. Keeping me honest. All right. Great program tonight, gals, and our gun violence prevention team. For those of you who don't know, when we were only 17 members, Sandy Hook happened. And this was the very first of our now 19 teams. This was the very first one. It's continued consistently with some new leaders that have come in and that, but it's been absolutely amazing team. And every year they hold a remembrance in December, I believe, for all of the victims, not just Sandy Hook, but forward. And
the survivors.
Kathy works on that almost all year long with other folks. And typically it's at the United Methodist Church in Arlington Heights, and it is both streamed and in person. A beautiful remembrance. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Bill,
Oh,
as
Thank you
ever.
so much, Bill.
Yeah. And I did say the first one we had 17 members. Now we have 10,000 members locally, and we have 25,000 nationally. So you guys have really driven this. You're our first, and you are consistently our team. And thank
That's
you to
incredible.
everybody who's on.
How's our international membership? We had a few international people before we go.
We do. People just drop in from Ecuador, from Canada, from Vietnam, from a few from England, and then Mexico. Every once in a while, we'll get somebody drop in. The ones that drop in from Mexico are usually expats that have left the United States and live down there now. So that is great. And we're part of Indivisible, which has now 2,700 members across the country and is growing by 3 to 4 chapters a day.
Wow.
Wow.
Every state.
2,700 chapters, Bill?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And we are fortunate to be one of the larger chapters across the country.
Well, thank you. Well, it's now 8:20. So our 8:15 ending is not taking place, but I
But
can go
okay.
now.
All right.
So good night. Thank you
Good
so
night,
much
everyone.
to Debbie and to
Thank you
all
for
of you for
coming.
joining us.